I wanted to, before we read the scripture, did I turn this off? As Jeff comes forward to read the scripture, I wanted to give you a little extra context today. Our lectionary readings this week, or the last 2 weeks we've had really long stories, and today we would have had another longer story. I was debating about should we read all those stories or should we do this or that. And Cindy Hopper gave me a good piece of advice, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But so we're reading from the Romans text. But I wanted you to hear what those other two stories were before we heard the Romans text. I want these in your mind as you hear this. The first is the story of the dry bones, the valley of the dry bones from Ezekiel, where God calls Ezekiel to prophesy to the dry bones, and the bones gain the sinews and all of that, and they come to life. And it's a symbol for the Israelite people that if they would trust and have faith in God, that they too would rise up from their seemingly dry bones. And then the other story is the story of the resurrection of Lazarus, where Jesus is called by Mary and Martha and asked to come and heal their sick brother. But Jesus remains where he was for 2 days, and Lazarus died. And then when he gets there, Mary and Martha both individually say to Jesus, if you had come before, if you'd have come hurriedly, then Lazarus would still be alive. And Jesus talks about how that this would be a symbol would be an opportunity for God's glory to be shown. But then, just before he goes to raise up Lazarus, we get the most famous line in the scripture that is in John 3:16, and it's because every kid can memorize that one verse. Jesus wept, or in the New Revised Standard, Jesus began to weep. And so we have that imagery of Jesus weeping the loss of his friend in that moment. And then we're told there is a stench coming from the tomb, and then Jesus calls upon God to do what is necessary and raise Lazarus, and he calls Lazarus out, and he's resurrected. And these are the two stories that we have in our context for today as we hear from Paul and his writings to the Romans.
Reading from Romans chapter 8, verses 6 through 11. To set the mind on the flesh is death, but set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For this reason, the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. And those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh. You are in the Spirit, since the Spirit of God dwells in you. Anyone who does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him. But if Christ is in you, though the body is dead because of sin, the Spirit is life because of righteousness. If the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also through his Spirit that dwells in you. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Let us pray. Holy and loving God, we give you thanks this day for the scripture that you've given us. We pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of each of our hearts would be pleasing in your sight. O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Paul doesn't do this very often, but he's trying to clarify things. Paul often makes things a little harder to understand, a little more difficult for us to grasp, but not this time. Paul talks about spirit and flesh, and in the simplest of terms, flesh equals death, and spirit equals life and peace. And so we have that imagery that gives us the idea that the flesh is death and the spirit is life and peace. And as we think about that, we start to understand very simply that Paul is trying to teach us how to live. He's trying to show us how to focus our thoughts and how to focus our ideas to think about the good news of Jesus Christ. Remember, he's writing to the Romans, and the Romans are new to this whole faith thing. They have their own journey that they've been on, and he's introducing to the Roman church the Christian faith. And he gets into something that they understand. And that, in fact, that many cultures have understood for centuries, even at his time. And that is that there is a difference between the person that we are and the body that we live in. That we're not simply this physical being, but there is another part of us that goes beyond that. We've often talked over the years and centuries about what separates humans from animals, what separates us from the other living creatures in the world. And the answer seems to almost always be the soul or the spirit. And I think Paul is trying to help us come to an understanding of that is a little different than what we had understood before. Or maybe to help us understand that sense of spirit comes from Christ, comes directly from God. That when God breathed into us the breath of life, it wasn't just air. You know, in the Hebrew, the word ruach means breath, but it also means spirit. And so when the breath of life was breathed into Adam, it was also the spirit of life. And I think it's important for us to look at how Paul is simplifying this, because he doesn't always simplify things. To set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the spirit is life and peace. Now notice he didn't say one is death and one is simply life, but that with the spirit there is life and peace. And I think he's pointing to the idea that we need to understand that our lives are more than just the mere existence that we have. The mere ability to breathe and eat and do all the things that a biologist would determine as life. But that as a person, we have a connection that we have to make with the rest of other people. We're not only necessary for one another because we need to eat and we need to have shelter and clothing. We're also necessary for one another because we need to belong. We need spirit. We need to be connected. I look back at the story of Jesus going to Lazarus' tomb with his friends, Mary and Martha, and how they come to him and they're disappointed in him. They're upset that he didn't come sooner. Is it not on? They're upset that he didn't come sooner. There we go. They're upset that he did not come sooner because they said if he had come sooner, then their brother would be alive. If only you had hurried, he would still be alive. And Jesus then pauses and listens to their admonitions, and he says to them, Lazarus isn't dead, he's merely sleeping. And he doesn't mean that literally. He means Lazarus is dead, but that there is a purpose beyond that is taking place. And in fact, the storyteller, John, tells us that when they get to the tomb, there is a stench coming from the tomb. To emphasize that not only is Lazarus dead, but he has been dead a long time, and his body is going through the decomposition. And then we get that moment. Jesus began to weep. And in my studies this week, I've heard of all kinds of explanations that people give and try to explain why Jesus would be weeping. Now, the obvious question is, if Jesus knows he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead, then why does he weep? Why does he cry? And I think that there's a lot of attempts to try to give this a lot more theological than it is, and maybe a little less human than it is. But I find comfort in knowing that Jesus wept because his friend had died. Because someone he loved had experienced death. And then also, that he saw that his friends Mary and Martha and all of those that were there grieving the loss of Lazarus, that he wept alongside them as well. But it is a powerful imagery to know that Jesus experienced the same kind of loss that we experience in our lives. And he cried alongside Mary and Martha. I told you that Cindy offered a piece of wisdom. Most of you know this has been a hard week for us. You know of Steve McAfee's passing and the difficulty of decisions that had to be made and the struggle that he's been through over the last few months, and we grieve his loss. Alongside that, we here in Norris experienced the loss of Jim Mormon, who was not a long time resident of Norris. I thought he'd been here for a lot longer, and I talked to two different people this week about Jim Mormon. Jim Hayes told me, I met Jim Mormon back in 1969 when he was a missionary in West Virginia. And then I found out, Lloyd Farrar called me. Many of you know Lloyd. Jim Mormon had been his aide in a way, his friend and the person who carried him to different places and got him, made sure he got community. And Lloyd called me to make sure that I knew that Jim had died. And he said, I met Jim back in 1969 when he was a missionary in West Virginia. And I don't think Jim and Lloyd knew that they knew Jim back that long ago. And there was a connection that was made. A connection of spirit. But along with that, I got another couple of phone calls this week, and a friend, a member of one of my churches in the past who was one of those saints. He was about 90 years old. Had a long marriage of 65 years when his wife died of breast cancer a few years back, and had remarried. And was just one of those people that everybody looked at and said, what a saint. This is the person we should model ourselves after. And in that moment, we had lost three of the most optimistic, kind, and gentle people that I've met. And then the very next day, Wednesday morning, I was getting ready for our Bible study, making coffee, and I got a phone call from another friend of mine. And some of you came a few months back. We had a storytelling event, and we had three storytellers who told stories for us. And Sylvia Idem was the one that was our featured teller, the one who sat in a chair and told, and had the microphone wasn't hanging on her head the way it was supposed to, and she told a story the way she told stories. And my friend Mike called to tell me that she had passed away. So it's been a hard week. And Cindy's piece of wisdom was, even not knowing about all of the others that I mentioned, that we need comfort. That we need comfort. And I can't imagine, first off, what could be more comforting to the know than that God's Son understands our grief, understands our pain, understands our loss. Yesterday I was able to share, as a part of the funeral for my friend Sylvia, I was able to share some of her little stories just as a way to say to people, I hope that you see a little of her in my connection to her, because that's how we're all connected. And I think that we find that a lot. That the very Spirit of Christ is what connects us. what separates us, what makes us, and by separates I mean makes us holy, sets us apart from the world. But more importantly, the Spirit of Christ is what connects us to one another. It is the very thing that helps us to know that we're not alone in this world. That we live in God's world, but God lives in us. Yesterday I was at the hospital visiting a member over at Sinking Springs, and he and his wife were talking to me about how blessed they felt to be a part of their church. His name is Mike, and Mike he comes to church on Sunday morning, and then about 3/4 of the way through the service, first I thought he just really hates my preaching, because he gets up in the middle of the sermon every Sunday and leaves. And later I found out that he's going to go be at church with his wife. She has a mother that she cares for, and then a younger person in their lives who's in a wheelchair and needs special attention. And so she goes to church with them, and he comes to his church. And he said, the reason I've never changed churches is because my church has loved me so much. That they showed me the Spirit of God. They showed me the blessings of God's life and God's love. And I was thinking about that last night, and I realized that I think that we can all come to some place in our lives where we recognize that about our own church. Whether it's here or other churches you've been a part of as well, where it's that connection that you have to one another. One of the big criticisms that a lot of people have with the big mega churches is, how can you have that community? And my big criticism is that people go because they want to hear the preacher. But I think people need the church not because of some great preacher, but because of some great love that's in the congregation. That you are the tie that binds, so to speak. When Paul talks about the flesh is death and the Spirit is life and peace, we find life beyond just the existence of a body. We find life where there is love and there is joy and there is peace and there is pain and there is comfort and there is interconnectedness together. Paul wants us to know that if we live and abide in Christ and Christ abides in us, that our life is abundant, that our life is full. But I think he also wants us to know that we need that interconnectedness. We have a Bible study group that's studying the Apostles' Creed in Adam Hamilton's book, and he talks about the Holy Catholic Church, that phrase, we believe in the Holy Catholic Church. And of course it's a small c, it's not the Roman Catholic Church we're talking about, it's the Church Universal. But the words that are used in the Scripture to say church are all about belonging. And there's two kind of things being said there. There's the church is the body that is set apart, holy, that is interconnected, Catholic, universal. The congregation, the gathering of people for a purpose. And our purpose is to lift one another up, to hold each other close, to cry together, to laugh together, to live life abundantly together. Our hope in the church is not just that we'll have a place that we can go and occupy our time, where we can go and learn about God and religious things and all of that. It really is that we can come together to have that Spirit of God in us, that we might have life and peace together. Let us pray. Creating and loving God, I ask you this day to help teach us to live the way that you want us to. Help give us the love that you have shown us. And help us to love as you have loved us. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.